So hello and welcome to another edition of our review show for here at GPVWC. This time we're reviewing round 13, the French Grand Prix at Manicourt. This was a week ago now, and we got our three normal series to look through. So we're looking through our Superleague, our Supercup and our Formula Challenge. I'm as ever joined by Mr. James Kirk and Lewis McGlade. Say hello, chaps.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to have you back again. Although I don't seem to ever get rid of you both either, but nonetheless.
Yeah. Nah.
You love it.
I do. So, coming back from all, we were looking at the French GP, which, to be honest, I think it's a great track for our cars here. I thoroughly enjoyed all three races, well, four with the Formula Challenge. I know we say that every week, but these were just brilliant. I think maybe it's because it's such a short track or what, but it just made the whole fields quite close and some great racing as well. Don't know if you guys felt the same, but nonetheless.
My opinion was it was a short track. It was quite tough to drive, but no, it did produce some really good racing.
Good for the spectators, terrible
Yeah.
for the drivers. I think I can't remember one single positive comment about Manicourt in every single room that it was pretty much constant negativity from the drivers. But you know, as you say, produced some excellent races, and it'd be great to review all of them.
Well, on that basis, let's move on and let's start off with the Super League, shall we? So this is, for those of you who haven't seen us before, this is our primary event here at GPVWC. We do full race distance, that was 70 laps here. And again, we saw same sort of name batted about, but equally little changes. So we came up with Ruud Hesperik winning again, with Jim Paris in second and Lucas Euler third. Now, obviously, that's quite low for Lucas, or as far as we've been used to him being. Few other notable points as well, but it's probably the closest race finish we've had, in my memory. Anyway, not just this season. At the official time being 0.16 behind first and second, they were there, and a bit controversial as well, I presume. So I can imagine there was a flurry of other events that went on throughout the race as well, but this was probably the biggest. Surprise to me, I suppose, to a degree, but equally sticking point. So, what did you guys make of the race in total, first off, and then equally the incident that we'll show as well?
Fun race. I enjoyed it a lot. As you say, nice and close, and really, I mean, you can't really take much away from last couple of laps of that race. Ruud has to be Jim Paris. As you say, we'll get to the incident itself later on, but as far as racing goes, for a good 2 laps, that was one, if not the best battle this year in Super League and in GPVWC overall as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. We had I remember just sitting on the edge of my seat for the last 5 laps, not really knowing who specifically was gonna win the race. It was a really nice spectacle, and I think it's shown well for GPVWC. But Jim Paris, though, seriously, he had an impressive race, to have kept it up there in the lead for so long, and only really fell to Heasterbeek in the final few corners. But unfortunately, that was enough. I mean, they had a lovely duel over the last few laps, but it was that moment that mattered most, crossing the finish line, and Paris wasn't the guy to take it first.
I think we've actually seen a lot of quality come from Jim Paris recently. Remember, he took pole position in Spa, and the only reason he didn't get a top result there was because he got spun at the first corner. Here we are seeing real fruit of Torrent Motorsports' labour throughout this season. And his teammate, Petter Kasa, P4, only 2 seconds behind Lucas Euler. Torrent is a real dark horse coming into this final part of the season, and the fact they got both their cars to the finish, which is a huge achievement, because you look at the retirement list, everyone from P23 up to P12 retiring. I'd watch out for Torrent. I would be very surprised if they don't get a race win by the end of the season. Same with Lee Morris, who unfortunately was kind of, well, he was unlucky again, really, in this race.
Well, yeah, while we're on Lee Morris, obviously he actually went out on lap 31, I believe it was. Well, taken out. So with a unfortunate disconnection for Liechtenstein, meant that Lee Morris got caught up in that, and whilst running in the fourth or fifth, I think it was, so he could have had a good race as well. He was only just behind Alex Cooper at the time. I'm catching. So, do you think he could have made a difference as well? Because we're seeing some interesting names batted around.
I reckon he would have done. He was on a different strategy to everyone else as well. So he was playing something differently from what I remember. I think he would have been a key part in that top 5. Really, I don't know where he would have been in that top 5, but I'm pretty sure he would have been up there, fighting for some pretty decent points, possibly a podium position. Maybe even a little bit higher than that. But this is the thing with what we watch, what we commentate on, and what we race in. Is that we never really know what's going to happen next. And, Lee Morris just got caught up in an incident that wasn't necessarily his fault and just happened very, very quickly and spiraled, unfortunately, to move him out of the race.
That said, everything seemed to work perfectly into place of Phoenix. They were
the other one I was going to mention as well.
Yeah, I mean, they're still quite a way off the pace. But the fact of the matter is that they got a double top 10 finish. These teams at the bottom of the table, with all this sort of bashing about and loads of retirements, they're really starting to come into their own, and it really might provide a great battle. Not just we're thinking like separately midfield and bottom of the table. We're just thinking top lot and bottom lot now. Phoenix, ST, Green Stripes, I know they had a double retirement, but Phoenix especially looking increasingly better thanks to their consistency and thanks to 2 very top class drivers.
Well, yeah, they were. I mean, obviously they're a new team as well. Seeing them come in and the consistency, like you say, they've got some experience there in the drivers. Like you were looking at 9th and 10th, and equally Mark Fuller in the ST as well, picking up the points in 11th. These sort of people that are, and actually Kenny Labour in 12th actually was classified for points as well because he only dropped out a few laps from the end. But those sort of guys that, like you say, at the start of the year weren't scoring any points. We were looking at nothing. Just getting that car to the finish, ultimately half the grid couldn't do it. So they're deserving of those points, aren't they? Really, and it makes big differences to that team for next season as well, from a money and potentially drivers and personnel they can attract for the following season. So back to Torrent as well. Did anyone see that as a surprise? I know you were saying that, because some people would look at it and go, well, actually, they obviously had a podium back in where were we? Were we back in Malaysia? Was it back then? And then obviously Peter Cass as well had a couple more recently. But has anyone seen it as a surprise that they're up there? It's a new team this season still.
No, I think put simply, Torrent Motorsport is a very, very efficient outfit. Last year, they weren't necessarily in the limelight, but let's remember now, they took the 2012 Drivers and Constructors Championship in WSS. They took the 2012 Drivers and Constructors Championship in Formula Challenge, and the 2012 Drivers, and actually, no, not the Drivers, sorry, but definitely the Constructors in Supercup. These guys were quietly going about their business last year, and although a lot of people say, they've snuck underneath the radar, people who've been watching will know that this has been coming. And this strong podium, comes as no surprise to me, given that Jim Paresis showed he could get pole position at Spa last time out. I think that, that's why I say they've very much been dark horses throughout the year. Now the fruits of their labour are definitely coming to the surface.
I agree with James there, although I don't think it's only just now. I think it's always kind of been there, but it seems to show on some specific tracks, and obviously Manicool was one of them. But they have done quite well throughout the season so far, with consistency and the like. But I think they're gonna possibly score another couple of podiums before the end of the year, maybe a race win if they can pull it together. But I mean, you've got 2 people going for a title who are just getting increasingly faster and more determined to take those extra points with the race win. They're just getting more and more able to do it, and I think it's gonna get harder for Torrent to do it. But you never know, really. I mean, I think Manicourt was a surprise in somewhat pace wise with Torrent, but I think it was overall. If you look at the race itself, it was a good, strong race, and surprise or not, it was just a really good thing to watch.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic to watch the whole. I mean, I loved it. And then we look at it as well, and actually, we're talking. We haven't even spoken about the winner. Without going into the incident of the last lap, we've got Lucas Order actually ended up down in third, which is his joint worst result of the year. I know that sounds daft. He's still on the podium, but that for him, that's not a great race. The only other time he's done that is at Monaco. You look at that going, has this hampered his title challenge a little bit, with it being Ruud as well that managed to get the win?
Who knows?
As I say, we need. I mean, actually, maybe we should just quickly go into who we thought or who should have won the race, because none of the penalties have actually been revealed yet, have they? So
I'm being told actually as we speak, by the end, we'll go into this now, but there's the final lap obviously was being very close, and we'll be showing it on screen now. But literally the very last, there's the last chicane, but just before that, the corners before, Ruud took it back in, should we say, aggressive fashion?
Yeah,
best
I'm going to go with aggressive fashion.
It was a desperation move.
Yeah,
and the fact of the matter is, he forced him wide. The question is whether they allow it and whether they thought that Paresis had a chance at least to come back and get him.
I mean, I'm trying to be very vague on this a little bit, because I'm awaiting the outcome of the penalties as we speak, so we should be able to have it before the end of this show.
It's live.
Live as well, almost. It's brilliant.
Wow.
Which is almost makes it worthwhile while we're a bit late doing this. So hopefully we'll know one way or the other. I know the next two series. I know this is the one series that they've still been deciding it even up till now. That's why it's not out yet, because it's that close. They've been reviewing it over the last 3 hours, and as I'm told, it's quite a split sort of decision. So it's very controversial and very close. And with it, obviously, any sort of penalty would obviously make such a big difference. So I'm just going to ask you your opinion, guys. Do you think there should be a penalty?
James can take this one first. James first.
Yes, I think Paresis should have the win. And I'll leave it at that.
I would agree. I think it was a far too aggressive move in desperation. It wasn't. Those last few corners weren't pretty to really watch, and despite what happened in the last few laps where it was excellent driving, that just kind of seemed. It was just. I agree with James. It was completely out of desperation, and there should be a penalty there, but that's not for me to decide.
Well, no, we're not in charge. Unfortunately, our opinions are very much just our own. But if that incident had happened on lap 12 and it wasn't for the win, would we still be looking at a penalty?
Yeah, probably, because it was still pushing another car out wide.
And he didn't let him back through.
Could you argue he couldn't really let him back through? Or am I just trying to be devil's advocate there?
There's plenty of time on that.
There was plenty of time, yeah. You can let him have the win.
Yeah, there is loads of room on that pit straight. And the worst thing is that this could cost Ruud, if he does get a penalty from it, which as to this time we are unsure. You may all know by now, but we're unsure. If he were to get a penalty for this, what would it be? It would be a time penalty, which would push him to about 4th. This 20-second time penalty.
Well, it depends. It's a very unique situation. We don't really have a set number, or we don't have set rules, do we? So they could be sensible and give Heasterbeek a 10-second penalty, which I think would be correct, because then it give Paresis first,
the win, but leave
second.
Heasterbeek in second. Yeah, that would be fair.
But if it's 20 seconds, as Lewis rightly says, it doesn't only move him to 4th, but it gives Torrent a double podium and a winner with that podium as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously there's a lot of options they could do if they decide to give a penalty. Should stress that. But they might not even give a time penalty. It has been known when they've done these things
Could be
in
a
the
grid
past
penalty.
that they've given a grid penalty the next race. You know, you start looking at these things, don't you? That seems to be the favoured option this year at the moment, anyway.
That could cost him more though, because moving into another race. Say he gets a 5-place grid penalty, he qualifies on pole, he moves back down to 6th. That's that's not like midfield or anything like that. That's still top load of positions. But I mean, what if someone behind him misses his braking spot or something like that, and then plows into the back of him, and he wouldn't have been in that position had he not have had that 5-place grid penalty. There's so many things.
So you're thinking that it's not just the penalty this time that would potentially cost him the win. He might get second, might get fourth, whatever. But you're saying actually the grid penalty,
which
as
well.
You're assuming there, of course, he gets pole. If he got third quickest time or something, he's well down into the midfield.
Exactly.
So, and then you're right. There is obviously that unknown aspect, isn't there? It'd be interesting to see. Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see, and I'm sure everyone watching would also have had their own opinion on it completely, because it has been quite a talking point amongst the GPVWC community anyway over the last week.
We need these controversial events though.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, God, we wouldn't be able to talk about anything if nothing happened. Exactly. So it keeps us going for a while. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to come back with that before this is out. So we might well revisit this before the end of this show. So looking at, obviously it's provisional, like we were saying, nothing's confirmed. But looking down at the standings, then that's changed things around a little bit. Like we were saying, Lucas Oil's still at top there, 250 race for one race, but. I'd have thought, that's never going to happen. So that's quite an interesting little battle appearing there as well. Do you guys think it's pretty much status quo? It's going to kind of stay as it is? I mean, or do you see a lot of movement there?
I wouldn't like to see any movement because I'm really lazy with the leaderboards and I don't like changing anything.
I think it's difficult to tell. One retirement and so much could flip, but quite frankly, I think Lucas and Midnight are looking like the favourite party to win it once again this year. The first ever repeat back-to-back champion.
Yeah, I know, but as you said, it quite heavily swings either way. Heasterbeek's not totally out of this. They've, if you count the retirement for Euler in Malaysia and the missing a race for Heasterbeek in Italy, they've both had a race where they haven't scored any points. They're quite close competitors. I don't think this is even nearly over yet. And judging statistically on the way that I think we discussed this last time, where we haven't had a separate winner in the fact of someone who's won a race has gone on to win another race afterwards, meaning that Heasterbeek statistically should win Germany. But who knows? It's Euler's home race. So it's going to be so interesting where this championship's going to go. And we've got 5 races, 5 completely different tracks, and hopefully a spicy championship finale.
Well, I'm sure it's definitely going to be that one way or the other. If this race was anything to go by, we're definitely going to see a few more twists and turns before the end. And then on to the constructors, we've still got Midnight sitting pretty at the top almost, but 36 points ahead of Nijo. And then Torrent now as well, which, depending obviously on results, if they had a good double point, they've got a good top finish there as well. So they've moved themselves quite strongly ahead of Norwegian now as well, which again is a very good place to be because obviously we know their history and their quality as well. Which again, it's the same two people we've been talking about the same all the way through, isn't it? Really, not an awful lot's changed this round, so I think we'll probably watch it with interest over the next few rounds. But apart from, I suppose Phoenix, like you're saying, need a little mention. They've moved themselves up as well, haven't they? I think they're about 9th now, which is
similarly excellent race. Well, everything from below first, to be honest. Unfortunately, the 3rd Grand Slam in a row for Giuseppe Rainieri, who moves solidly into 2nd place in the Drivers' Championship. Giuseppe looking more and more likely like he could become Supercup champion for this year. Is Oscar Hardwick, well, he finished 5th at the end of the day after an incident-filled race. He's lost all drive for the competition now, and he was conceding to me. I can't remember whether it was in the interview room, but it was definitely in private. He just doesn't think he will do it anymore because Giuseppe, quote, is too good. Which is a shame. And if the Super Cup ends up like this right until the end, then I think it's going to be pretty boring, to be honest. You can't do much when you've got a guy on fine form. Shout outs though to the Finn and the Dutchman, Miko Sukas and Dawe Tapper, who made up the podium. Miko Sukas in the hunt for a Nordschleife drive possibly next year in Superleague, looking very strong. He's taken part in 3 races so far. All 3 finishes have been podiums, and this is his highest so far. Dawe Tapper filling in the car for Dan Rusu once again, looking to be moving up to Super Cup with the Vodball contingent. His best results of the year so far by a good 6 places. And I mean, he was my driver of the day. He was supreme and he worked his strategy perfectly to the letter.
Agreed. Just as a shout to Oscar, finishing 5th, it does seem like his championship charge is just crumbling, unfortunately, which is a shame. I mean, I don't know if we're going to get a nice championship battle at the end of this because it's not looking likely these days. Oscar, I mean, I remember the pre-race, he wanted to know how long until CSG have won the Constructors. Or was that on WSS, wasn't it? Nope.
No.
It was actually Supercup. See, I'm losing my mind here.
I think he was seriously considering after this race, once CSG have wrapped up the Constructors, just calling it quits and focusing on next year. I can't remember whether I've told anyone about his prospects for next year. I believe he is confirmed with a Super League drive. I won't say anything just yet, but that is the murmurings going about. And so I think he's just going to help CSG get to the finishing line, call it quits.
Yeah,
which is a shame, really.
I agree. I just think Giuseppe's too fast. I think Giuseppe is too fast for Oscar. And I mean, when you've had the lead for so long, I say so long, I mean, he's had the lead since, Italy, so he's not had it for that long. But, he's been the predicted champion, really, or going for it with Ryan Walker for so long. And then out pops Giuseppe just to absolutely obliterate the opposition, 5 times in a row. And there's not that much Oscar can do about it, unfortunately. And getting a 5th is most certainly not what he needs.
No, but it could have been an awful lot worse, couldn't it, for him? And you still look at the standings, and let's not forget he's still leading. He's still, how many points are we? Are we 19 points ahead? Is he still?
He's 19 points ahead, and there's 25 points between 1 and 2 for the rest of the season.
To be honest, that's not the thing to look at, though. The thing to look at, Mike, is the 5 consecutive victories, the 3 consecutive Grand Slams.
Well, of course.
The Italian is absolutely unstoppable.
But as argument to that is all good things come to an end, and that is a good thing for him, and I'm fairly sure someone else is going to win soon enough.
Well,
I do wonder whether his... Sorry, I do. I'm just going to say, I do wonder.
Sorry, it's all right.
I know it's an interesting debate, though. I just think that I wonder whether all good things must come to the end will be the end of the season, Lewis, when he's forced to stop. Honestly,
only one way to find out.
Yeah.
But then, as Oscar showed, bad problems can occur that you might not have thought of. It's other drivers that make the big difference. You could be lapping somebody and something can happen. God knows only what could happen. So it will only take, like you say, one small issue.
Well,
for Ranieri.
That said, his starts have been appalling. He's got this weird gearing, which means that his launches are terribly slow. If he gets caught a first lap incident, then obviously that's an issue. And also, I've been seeing, quite bizarrely, himself and Oscar Hardwick have seemed to make mistakes in the opening 2 laps of the last 2 races. It's the both of them. They seem to just have this weird start, but then after that he flies off into the distance.
Yeah, well, he's obviously got some little trick there, hasn't he? Because you're right, it is something that's only just started to come around. He's obviously sets the car up completely different to everyone else, and does get that. It's just that damn right speed. It's fantastic to watch, though, isn't it? I mean, like you say, potentially a little bit boring in that no one's anywhere near him last race. But then the race was, I mean, as you alluded to, the race for second and third and further down was fantastic as well. Obviously,
it was.
I would think that as well.
Absolutely excellent. It was a good race when you ignore first place, which unfortunately it seems like for Supercup we're going to have to for quite a while now. But I mean, it was a really good race, and Tapper showed that he is ready for Supercup. You know, that he can hack it here and get a podium, and you know, maybe next year Tapper could be one of the people in title contention. But meanwhile, for now, you know, he's just popping up and jumping in those podiums and things like that, and those extra points. It is looking good for Tapper. Tapper is a clearly impressive driver for Supercup, a future champion. I get the feeling.
Obviously, he's obviously my driver, so I'm obviously very proud of him. He's done very well here. But him and Mika Sukas as well, between those two, are very interesting. Like, Amino Clont did very well as well, coming fourth with multiples.
Yes.
You know, those sort of group of people. Who else stood out to me? Kenny Libert as well. Am I pronouncing that right? I can't remember how he decided.
Libert, yeah.
Libert. You know, again, impressed me at parts. You know, came home sixth at the end of the day. All these people were sort of quite new to this series and showing a bit of interest as well. And you can imagine, like you say, if Ranieri should move on to bigger and better things next year, and potentially Hardwick as well. See, I'm sure they've already got them lined up somewhere. You know, it does leave potentially an interesting 2014.
Hopefully a good championship to look forward to.
Well, perhaps I should go through the championship standings as they are now. The top 10, led by Oscar Hardwick since Monza, being very rapidly closed in by Ranieri. The gap between those two now 19 points, 202 to 183. Ryan Walker no longer participating, still third on 168. Oknowski now no longer participating either on 101. Sindre Grimseth, what a fall from form he has had. I mean, one win in Malaysia, excellent. And then suddenly it's all fallen away from him. His recent result, a retirement. He's fifth on 90. Morten Wernersen, slowly closing him up, only 5 points behind with 85. Patrick Gatewood, very, very consistent man, only had 4 retirements a course of the year, constantly in the midfield on 77 points. James Shepherd, no longer racing, still 8th on 70. Wixie, another consistent guy, unfortunately didn't start France, just 1 point behind Shepherd on 69. And Menno Clont, after his 4th position, highest finish of the year, now moves himself up into the top 10 ahead of Roy Schroten on 65 points. So there's going to be changing before the end, I'm certain of it, but that's probably only because there are people there who are no longer participating. But I'm worried for not James Shepherd, so I'm worried for Sindre Grimseth. His fall from grace has been, it's been extraordinary, really, to think that such a good driver has lost it all of a sudden.
Well, it's amazing to think he won the second round back in Malaysia, and then you're right, over the last, I think he's came 10th in Britain, 14th in Italy, and we haven't got anything off him since. It is a shame, but he's still got that skill, so it's obviously there. I don't know what's going on. We can never, we haven't had any. Hopefully, we get to speak to him at some stage. It'd be interesting to hear. But yes, you're right. I think they could definitely get caught up by a few people.
I'd say watch out for Morten Wernersen near the end of the year. I think if he keeps going like he is, he might be in with a pretty good shout, maybe even 4th in the drivers, maybe 3rd if he can stretch it. But looking at the constructors, we've actually got quite a juicy situation here. I mean, CSG's pretty much confirmed as, well, if anyone else wins the title, it'll be highly surprising. They're leading by 99 points over Innovision in 2nd. But Innovision have got to watch their backs now. Scuderia Basilia has moved their way up into 3rd. And with Ranieri scoring win at the last 5 races, the Innovision guys, whoever's in the car, whether it be Parker, Bennett, Sukas, or De Vries, they've got to pull their socks up because, well, they need to pull in some good results to stay ahead of Basilia. There's a very good battle between Multiforce and Target Racing, 6 points apart. Satellite Racing, still there or thereabouts, 6 points behind Target, but that battle 4th to 6th is certainly one to watch out for. Then you got Vodbull, thanks to their amazing result in France, pulled miles ahead of Street Fighter, now have sort of been left on their own. And then we got the battle down the bottom. We got PD kind of on their own. The very close battle between Fox Racing and PB for 10th and 11th. And FA Racing with their 6th place from Kenny Libert, who I think must be one of the transfers of the season to get their 6th place. They pulled well clear of Centurion, who, I mean, it must be said, Centurion were seriously looking for a double top 10 finish today. They had Tommy Koivunen there in the top 10. They had new signing Mikael Tumala there in the top 10. And both the drivers retired. They're throwing good results away now.
Yeah, it's just something you just can't afford to do when you're that low down. It's such a shame, really. But then the guys there, they could, I'd expect them to get a decent few results before they finish the season. In the next 5 rounds, I can't say they're going to get some more points, definitely. But the 2 drivers they had there showed some moments of skill, and I could definitely see them scoring some reasonable points as well.
Yeah, I think you'll have like these close battles. I mean, if you look at it realistically with some of the gaps between some teams, you'll have quite a bit of chopping and changing, I think, until the end of the season. And I think there's only one position that really, or maybe 2 positions really, that won't change, which is CSG and Innovision at the top. I don't really see them changing around at all. I think CSG have got this one all sewn up, but I mean, throughout the rest of it, it's just there's going to be so much movement around, and every single point now will matter to every single team. And the one thing that needs to be stated is that these teams need to finish the race. I think we only had 14 real finishes for the actual race, and I don't see that being particularly good enough. We need to have, we need to have everyone finishing. Well, not everyone, but we need to have most of the grid finishing. To be fair, but I think what this says to some of the drivers is, don't worry about pushing too hard. Just finish the race, because you'll probably score points these days.
Talking about pushing too hard, I believe, Mike, that we have the confirmed Super League.
We do. I was going to come on to that
now
for you. It's just been announced that Ruud has got himself a 5-second penalty. This then demotes him to second, basically. That's the general gist of it. So we're now looking at a torrent win with Paris.
Yay!
Yep.
Which obviously you guys both called as well. I mean, I won't go into reading I have read it, but I won't read it to you guys. The explanation that they have put down for
It's a very long explanation.
Why it's particularly happened, and equally the particular penalty they decided to pick. We were saying a 20-second penalty is quite big, and
extreme.
They equally agreed that is quite unjust in the circumstances, because of what realistically there wasn't. 20 seconds were not lost through what happened. But I mean,
in the end, I think it's exactly the right penalty for exactly the right situation. I think not much lost, really, is there?
No, I definitely agree with you. I think it's just, it's big news for our championship and big news for, like you say, Torrent and stuff. And on the other hand as well, actually, there's a couple of other penalties that have gone on. We were saying about Christoph Liechtenstein. He obviously went crashed, didn't he? But equally, he's got a 5-grid penalty for next race. And Torrent also can't run a 3rd car in free practice. They're the only penalties that came out of it. So otherwise, the rest of the results are the same. So
if you don't mind, I want to quickly come back to Super Cup as well. We've actually just had some news in. Oscar Hardwick's championship does not get any better. He's just been given a 10-place grid penalty for Nürburgring for avoidable contact and inappropriate verbal conduct. And myself and Lewis were looking at this in the broadcast. Basically, himself and Sven de Vries got into a lot of bother with each other about contact and restarts and whatnot. And, well, both of them have received 10-place grid penalties. So Oscar Hardwick's day going from bad to worse, unfortunately.
Well, that to me just confirms Rainieri is the champion. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think that's a very strong call there by the management. I think that's from the admin stuff that shows a very strong laying down the foundation of the law there, that what is definitely inappropriate for the two of them. Because obviously we'll have these racing incidents, won't we? And these things happen.
Yeah, but you've got to stay mature. You can't use inappropriate words, which, as someone who was on the server at the time, there was some strong wording between the two of them, and that's not right. That is not right. No one wants to see that. No one wants to put up with that. And I think the penalty possibly a little bit extreme, but they need to crack down on this.
I mean, hell, I myself in another racing league was banned for multiple uses of poor language and outbursts. And
not surprised, James. Not surprised.
No,
to be honest, the references for you. Oh god.
Well, no, I tell you what. Yeah, all I'm saying is that's in the past, but it was absolutely the right to do, because what that did to me personally as a driver was shape me up into someone who, at least I hope now, can deal with situations much better, rather than outbursting and getting useless penalties or bans in my case. Everyone wants fun at the end of the day, and nobody wants to have to deal with an angry person. It's just one of those things, unfortunately, and hopefully Oscar and Sven will learn from it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Sven De Vries obviously very fast, isn't he, as well? And he's been around.
Indeed.
Not just looking into the career ladder, but we look across at the other side, one series that we do with WSS and GT and things like this. He's shown his speed, but he has shown a few character flaws, shall we say? In
Picks in the armour.
Yeah, like these little bits and pieces where maybe it is maturity, like you say. Maybe this sort of thing will jolt them into thinking differently and acting slightly differently, because obviously the league is showing quite definitively here that they're not going to stand for it. And with the penalty in Super League as well, they're obviously showing that again, you can't be doing that kind of thing. It makes such a difference to the championship as well, doesn't it? So it's a very tough call, and I'm very impressed with the admins and the management for making that call, if I'm honest. Anything else on Super Cup and things like that, or should we move on to Formula Challenge?
Let's move on to Formula Challenge, shall we? I think we dilly-dallied enough.
Well, this will be fun. Anyway, so to Formula Challenge, we obviously have 2 races. The way Formula Challenge works, you have a qualifying session and then the race. And I'm just about to check who got on pole, because Gagzella, well, that's a surprise. Didn't he have a 5-place grid penalty, or was that just me?
He did have a 5-place grid penalty.
Oh,
It was
yes,
David
Fiddick, of course, and then Fiddick started from pole. To which, in race 1, Fiddick went on to take the victory ahead of Gagzella and Kantonen. It was a good race, I think. I enjoyed taking part in it. That was always good fun. The top 10 are as follows: Jone Simoncic, Martin Palm in 5th, Matt Klipp 6th, Niemann 7th, Wiesenmuller is 8th, Schroeter 9th, and Lopez 10th. That's Carlos Lopez. But no, it was an interesting race, and Fiddick just kind of cruised it home, really. Gagzella got himself up into the podium place, which is something that he needs if he wants to keep his lead in the title. Fiddick is bearing down on that very quickly. But I'm telling you, 42 cars going around a track such as Manicourt was interesting, shall we say.
Yeah. It was one of those situations where you have experienced drivers in the Formula Challenge field, but you also have inexperienced drivers, and myself included, I was just one of those drivers who was completely caught out by... I was giving myself a 5-place grid penalty. I had a poor qualifying. I could not get through the field. It was like a Monaco situation, genuinely. And there were a number of contacts as well. I remember just people flying off into people's rear wings, and I think unless you're at the front or in a very nice situation, we had a wonderful battle with Fran Lopez actually at the back. Unless you're in clear air, it was really stressful. Yeah, you got to keep all eyes and ears about you, and if you didn't, well, you're pretty much gone.
Yep, and surprisingly on a track like that, we didn't have so many penalties, but interesting racing though.
It was great to watch, and you're right though, being such a short track with so many cars did cause an awful lot of problems, and not everyone got through it at the end of the day. You look at how many people did not finish within the first few laps, when everyone's obviously a lot closer together. Some big names as well. When you think Adrian McNaughton from Storm, obviously Gagzella's teammate, and Dowie Tapper, yeah, definitely, on lap 1. But not all these weren't their own incidents by any means. Some people, obviously Tapper particularly, I saw getting taken out. I think Adrian did as well. it's one of those that makes or breaks the race and the season for you, really.
Indeed.
Race 2?
Yeah, sure. I'll move on to race 2, as you do. So I can't remember what position was rotated to pole. I think it was 16th.
Yes.
Good guess. Usually it's 16th, to be fair. But anyway, the race winner was Kantonen, taking his second race 2 win in a row, followed by Fidek. So Fidek again moving himself consistently into a podium place, and he's doing himself really good in the championship. Followed by Florian Geyer. I do not know how to pronounce that. I'm really sorry. It's
I'm pretty sure it's Geyer.
Yeah.
Okay,
so then Gear. Okay. So fourth is Martin Palm, fifth Jack Nichols, who was leading for quite a bit of the race, the early race, I believe. Then you had sixth Ben Warren, seventh Ari Niemanen, eighth Robert Wiesenmuller, ninth Adrian McNaughton, 10th Matt Klipp. It was an interesting race. Kantonen, I think Kantonen's really proving that he's got some serious pace and that he can, win. He's won 2 races now for Adonis, and he's really showing himself as being a true contender. Now, with that, I'm wondering what he's doing for next year. Is he staying in Formula Challenge, or is he moving up to Supercup?
There is rumours that Menno Klont, who is team manager of Adonis Engineering, is trying to engineer a movement for Adonis up into Supercup. And with that, they would most likely bring Kantonen and his current teammate Simoncic even.
Simoncic.
Who is looking very strong, actually. He's looking like a good top 10 competitor.
Yeah, that team's definitely changed. And it'd be interesting to see. I mean, they probably are one of those teams that would be looking to move on up to Supercup if, you can't blame them, can you? Look at them, they're winning races down here, so you start looking up to the next level, and I think they could definitely do it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Adonis should move up, especially if they don't move up. I think Kantonen should, because if you look at it, he's won 2 races now. He's looking like one of these really strong drivers. If he stays next year, I kind of get the feeling that for a championship perspective, it's just going to be boring again, because Kantonen's looking like just the person for it if he stays next year. I mean, we don't know who's going to join in next year and what the pace of everyone's going to be, but if you compare it to the rest of the grid that's staying now, Kantonen does look like a serious contender if he were to stay for next year, and I don't personally think that that's a particularly good thing. If you're looking like a serious championship competitor, then look up. Look towards something like Supercup. And I think there's going to be plenty of spaces opening up there for some of the very fast Formula Challenge people to move up to, and I think Kantonen's one of them.
Well, more live news. Obviously we haven't seen Fidek, Gagzella, that sort of group yet, but Kantonen is leading the timings in German general practice. Currently 1/10 ahead of Tapper, so he's absolutely up there. And as I say, I presume Tapper will be looking to move up next year. I don't see any reason why Kantonen, who's clearly on the pace of those guys, should be not looking to move up either.
Yeah, that should be fun. Germany.
But, well, I suppose all these guys that were up that top end, we have seen, like you say, he's on the pace of those guys. He's beating David Fidek, who has now done a Superleague race. These guys can easily do it further up the grid.
Yeah, I completely agree that these drivers should really be looking forward. Someone I'm getting quite worried to is I'm going to get onto the championship, and then I'll discuss this specific driver who James may know who I'm talking about, but you know him personally anyway, so that's going to give it away. But anyway, the top 10 of the championship is currently Gagzella, obviously leading the way, 379 points. Followed by David Fidek on 292, who is very quickly closing in that gap. And this championship possibly going to start heating up now.
We probably didn't even mention there that Gagzella didn't actually finish race 2.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mention that. Thank you.
Just as obviously that's why the big gain is there.
That is why the huge gain is there, because this is something that's been consistent, is that Gagzella's been scoring well and then not in the second race and things like that, whereas Fiddick's been consistently up there and he's closing in that gap quickly. So this championship got a lot of potential now, considering not very long ago we were saying that it was all done and dusted. But
Well, I mean, what's it now? He had one. What's it? He had one retirement in Italy. Apart from that, everything from Istanbul race 1 to Manicourt race 2 has been on the podium.
for Fiddick, yeah, he's just been super consistent and super good at putting the car in the right place, and it's working out well for him. And hopefully, we are going to have a saucy championship for later on. Nevertheless, moving further down the championship table, you have P3 is Thomas Jacobs on 180 points, 12 points clear of Ari Nieminen, who's sitting on 168. The fast-moving Dawei Tapper is on 149 points, 19 points behind Ari Nieminen, looking like if he actually starts doing finishing races, which he has had some things that have been going wrong from the race, not his fault, meaning that he's not been scoring consistently, but Tapper hopefully going to be moving up those positions, possibly looking in this battle for third. Behind Tapper in sixth place is Pedro Malim on 147 points. Follows him is Gagzella's teammate, Adrian McNaughton, in seventh, 132 points. PJ Paul Joseph is in eighth, 121 points. Joint points with Matt Clip, 121 points as well. And then in 10th place, finish off your top 10, is Ben Warren on 107 points. So things definitely not over within the top 10. I think we're going to see quite a bit of position change. But, I really think this championship fight is not over yet. I think Fiddick is breathing life back into this, and hopefully will be looking good for Germany.
Oh, definitely. 87 points. That sounds a lot, but it's not actually when you're talking with 50 points available to any one driver each race event. It's not a lot.
Yeah, there's 10 races left, so that's a lot of points left on the table for anyone to take up. So yeah, hopefully there is potential for this championship now, and Gagzella's not consistent enough, I don't think. Albeit whether that's his fault or someone else's throughout the race, that's I think that's somewhat opinionated, but things not really looking that good for Gagzella, unfortunately.
I mean, don't count him out by any means. He's still definitely there. He's definitely getting, he's definitely got that skill, hasn't he? Well, I know he's had now 5, 6 races. Have we had 5 races where he hasn't had a win? Which for him is almost uncalled for. But that just shows, I suppose, the difference that Fiddick has made, really.
Yeah, I think Fiddick's really just maybe unnerved Gagzella. And the last time Gagzella actually won was when Fiddick retired, thanks to one very specific person who will not be discussed, James. Anyway, the person that I was saying about earlier who was causing me a little bit of worry.
Always get the stuff here, don't I? Never let off the hook, am I?
No, you will never be let off the hook. And you know that if Fiddick doesn't win the championship, I'll be blaming you. But anyway, the person that I was saying that was causing me a little bit of worry was Thomas Jacobs, who has been, through debatable fault of his own again, has been not scoring the points that he needs to stay in third place, especially when you've got a very fast-moving Dawei Tapper breathing up behind you to possibly take that 5th place. And I just personally think that Tom, if he wants to keep that 3rd place, he's got to step it up.
But yeah, I completely agree with you. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look from where was he? He had a 3rd place in Italy. I think it was his last decent result. So actually, you look at Belgium and France, and I think he scored a couple of points. That's it. Which, considering the lofty standings where we were talking about him, he has won a race this year as well. Looking back at, he's been fighting for that top few places. But it just seems a huge fall from grace. I don't know what's happened particularly. But having said that, sorry?
Comes to a situation where his teammates now outscoring him. Cameron Brewster's scored more points than Thomas Jacobs, who is a race winner. I mean, Cam's highest finish is 6th. Tom's won a race, had a pole position. serious questions have to be asked when such a huge difference in sort of abilities here comes back to haunt you like this.
Yeah, I do think some of the things that's happened to him in the race have been not his fault. He's just been pushed out of position by other people. But I remember in Belgium there was a mistake that was avoidable, going around Pouon, and it's these mistakes that's costing him more and more points, and it's not looking pretty for him sitting up there. He should be fighting further up than he is, and it's just not going his way, really, unfortunately. But anyway, I'm going to move on to the Constructors' Championship and go through the top 10 of that. Simic gapping Storm now. The Simic are on 571 points and sitting pretty at the top of the table. Storm, 511 points, 60 points behind. We've already discussed this. There's a lot of points on the table, and that gap can be closed, but Simic are looking pretty strong with 2 good drivers and 1 definitely going for the championship. Behind them in third is Kayala, quite a lofty gap behind, 247 points back from Storm, 307 off of Simic, and they're sitting on 264 points. Royal Blue not too far behind those on 242 points, 22 points gap them, and a further 22 points back to United Races, which is with Cameron Brewster and Thomas Jacobs. They're sitting in 5th place, 220 points to their name. Then is Tanskanen, Tapper's team, sitting on 206 points in 6th place, possibly able to take that 5th place from United Racers if things go their way. Then Adonis Engineering in 7th place, 210 points to them, looking as though they could be moving up with Kantonen. Now I think I've got a glitch on the table where Optimum are in 9th, but they have 128 points, and Waters are in 8th, but they have 121. So
I think, Waters actually should have 125 and Optimum 119.
Yeah,
okay.
The wiki's been updated, so that's all right.
Okay.
And
okay.
Tanskanen and Adonis are on the same points at 206.
Yeah.
Right. So okay.
Small changes, but it doesn't make a massive difference because the running order is correct.
I'll make sure that the screen on, maybe if I've made it on your screen at the moment, should be okay, but you never know. And then in 9th place, 10th place even, Ice Cold Racing sitting on 100 points. That's reading it off the wiki.
Yes.
So Ice Cold Racing maybe latching onto the back of that. There is quite a lot of teams really close to each other, really. I don't think anyone's particularly got breathing space at the moment, so it'd be interested to see who chops and changes throughout the rest of the grid now.
Yeah, other than those top 2 positions, I think actually it's we could see a lot of changes over the next 5 rounds, because like we were saying about the gap for the drivers, there's a huge gap between 2nd and 3rd, like you said, in the constructors, but outside of that, there's not a lot of point difference from 3rd all the way down to 7th. Ultimately that's not a big gap. While we're on it, the other one that could move up into that top 10 would be Multi 21. As well,
oh yeah, of course.
Who are on 90 points. If they can keep some Florian Gear that we were saying, who drives Multi 21, this was his first event here. And to come out with a podium in his 2nd race is very strong, isn't it?
Yep, and I think that's going to be a bit interesting. But since we've done it for the other 2 leagues, and that we have them, I'm actually just going to flick through the penalties as well, because why not? There's a 10-place grid penalty for Fran Lopez, something in qualifying, escaping outside of the pit lane. Then Dennis Lind and Todor Pangev have a 15-place grid penalty for doing the same thing but doing it 3 times. Victor Silva has a 5-place grid penalty for the failure to use launch control. I have a warning. Yeah.
Lewis!
Hey, you had a 5-place grid penalty.
Had a 5-place grid penalty.
I think the only reason why I didn't have a 5-place grid penalty was because I spun out and I was in 20th by the end of it. But it was my mistake.
Then, with another 5-place grid penalty, is Mike Bell for avoidable contact. Ben Willis for avoidable contact has another 5-place grid penalty. And
I believe they might have been related.
Huh?
I believe they might have been related.
They were both race 2, lap 1, turn 4. So one would assume. Hansco Mebius is the final penalty with a 5-place grid penalty for avoidable contact. So not as long and ridiculous as the penalty list from Spa, when no one used launch control, apparently. But still a fair amount of penalties.
And I think actually Mebius, Lopez, and Lind, all three of them are quite fast drivers, so it could very well affect the top 15, I reckon, in qualifying.
That's all right. You know what? I'm going to qualify 22nd, so it's fine. Good times.
Good times.
I suppose we haven't really gone into what you guys did this time around, have we?
Oh, yeah, James, go into it, please.
Qualified terribly, 5-place grid penalty. And I actually had quite a good race 1 after being. I got caught in the understeer at turn. There was like a huge amount of understeer turn 1 into the gravel. Collected Fran Lopez, got back on track, pitted for a new front wing, and managed to fight my way up to P20. Very good battle with Fran Lopez, must be said. So I was very happy with that. Was hoping for a 20 reverse grid, then I would have been in pole. Wasn't on pole, and then race 2 happened. And that was possibly one of the unluckiest races I've ever had. Got caught up on the grass after trying to overtake air. And then I got caught up in an incident at the final corner where someone had spun, someone had collected him, and I collected him, and that was my race over.
Oh, yeah, that was quite amusing to watch on replay.
It was funny, yeah.
But at least you didn't have like a Spa race 1 from me where just being collected in like everyone's incident, James.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna bounce back, and Nürburgring, I'm quite confident about my chances there.
Yeah.
Good times.
Well, you at least hopefully you won't be qualifying on the curb this time and starting from there.
Actually, to be fair, that was a huge advantage. The
yes.
runoff area, I mean, the launch control I have good starts anyway. I had a free track ahead of me, essentially, to go around the slow starting. I think it was Dave Simmons in front of me. So, yeah, it was quite nice, actually.
Yeah, well, for me,
You got a double points finish?
I did. I got a double points finish. I qualified 21st. So I've been consistently getting worse in qualifying, which is always fun. I qualified first off in 18th, then 19th, then 20th, now 21st. This is why I say I'm going to qualify 22nd for Germany.
So I need to put my money on that, do I?
Yeah, you need to put your money on 22nd for me. Okay. But no, we got the 12th in the first race, which was interesting, good fun. That was thanks to everyone DNFing. And then I got a 15th in race 2, which could have been higher, but I spun. Oh, yeah, and that was also the good thing, is that in the first race, I got caught up in some massive understeer through turn 1, as James did. James nearly hit me.
I did.
As we ended up in the same gravel trap around the same guy. Not the first time, James.
No.
But...
Keep it clean. This is an official podcast.
But then the 15th, I started 4th on the grid, which ended quite badly with me spinning in turn 1 because I turned in too early, and I think it was Mikko Jakinen who was on my inside, and I spun, pulled it back though, and scored a point. So I was happy. James wasn't though.
No, as I say though, I seem to be developing this theme of doing terribly one round and then bouncing back the next. So hopefully Nürburgring. I mean, having a quick look at the general practice times, my fastest time would put me just behind Dawe Tapper. So yeah. I am very.
That's not the first time either.
No,
I'm talking of racing. I'm talking of racing here.
Yes, of course you are. Of course you are. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I think it's going to be a very interesting race though. Tyre wear very high. I would be expecting some pit stops, actually. I wouldn't be surprised to see some for genuine tyre wear issues.
Yeah, there are some serious tyre wear issues here for Germany. And I think in all leagues we are going to have a very interesting race with a few drivers that we should be all looking out for.
So yeah, we will be looking over the next few races. There's quite a lot of drivers, like we've mentioned over these, nearly an hour now that we've been talking with these guys. I'm interested to see exactly, like say, how Cantonen do going forwards. and the battle between Fiddick and Gangzella will, I'm sure, have more twists and turns over the next 5 races as well. So, as you guys alluded to before, our next race is Germany. So, I'm sure, James, you were saying you're very excited about the speed there, or your speed, sorry. Lewis, not so much.
I know where I'm going to qualify. Be honest, it's going to be 22nd. But
Qualifying's not everything.
I think, you never know. Could be pole. Unlikely though.
Could be raining.
No, I think the race is going to be seriously interesting across all leagues. We've got tyre wear and everything, and this is going to show who's done the long runs pre-race, who's thought about tyre wear beforehand. Because I'm wondering who hasn't. And I don't think everyone has, and those that haven't are going to be falling back towards the end of the race.
As I say, possibility of rain in all 3 races.
Oh yes, love a bit of rain.
Definitely. I'm more excited to see how the battle up at the Superleague will carry on through, especially now we know the penalty there and that the results have changed. It's going to be really interesting to see how everyone bounces back, and if Torrent can carry on that, on the wave, crest of a wave almost there, and see if they can get another great result at the German Grand Prix. So our next races, if you're tuning into GPVWC, we've got the Formula Challenge with my 2 guys sitting next to me. But presumably you'll be watching everyone else. Well, that would make it simple. But anyway, on the 27th of August, that's on the Tuesday, that one goes live. And then the day after, we've got the Supercup on the 28th. And then the Super League, which is the one I'll be massively watching, on the 29th of August as well. This is all at the Nürburgring. So it's all very... to be honest, I can't be looking forward to this more. Actually, it's just ramping up towards the end of the season now, and it's just getting so exciting to see the challenges ahead and the results, and to see where everyone can make changes. And equally, I'm interested to see how you guys get on. Just for my own personal interest.
Drives to be decided as well. We've already seen Red Archer and Torrent looking for reserve drivers, possibly even primary drivers at this early stage. So plenty of news might still be ramping up about drive changes across all 3 series.
Yeah, I think we've got something serious to look forward to across Germany. It's going to go one way or another very, very quickly. And I think it's quite weird because, we were saying this, the Formula Challenge looks pretty much over championship-wise not too long ago, and now it's looking like one of the most exciting if things keep going the way they were. But there is only one way to find out, and that's to wait until Tuesday.
Well, definitely, all the series are all that close now. We've been, as we were speaking all the way through, there wasn't one bit where we were saying that they're going to... I know you guys are saying about Ranieri, but he's still not even leading the title race, so actually it's quite interesting to see how far these guys can go. So like I say, join us at the German Grand Prix next week, and then probably ourselves I'll have to meet you guys again another week after, I'm sure. And you can tell me all your fantastic tales of Formula Challenge and how many parts came off your car, or
exactly,
anything like that, or how many podiums you got. Positive thinking, mindset. You never know.
Yeah.
So why not? So I want to thank you both for being here. That was great again, and I'll look forward to watching it next week and again meeting up with you guys. So thank you. I've been Michael Pitman. This has been James Kirk and Lewis McGlade, and we shall speak to you next time.